911, what is your emergency? Ma'am? They just stabbed me in my cabin. What? They just stabbed me in my cabin. Who did? Hang on.
It starts with silly string, bright pink and yellow, sprayed over the grave of a 6-year-old boy. His mother is laughing. 7 days after his murder, something is very wrong. June 6, 1996, Rolette, Texas. A quiet suburban neighborhood. Inside a home on Eagle Drive, a family is asleep. Darlie Routier, her husband Darren, their 3 young children. Darlie and her 2 sons, Devon 6 and Damon 5, are asleep downstairs in the living room. Darren and the baby Drake are asleep upstairs.
The very first thing I hear is a glass break.
Darlie's husband Darren, sleeping upstairs.
And then I hear a scream of Darlie screaming as loud as she can.
It's just after 2:30 in the morning, then a 911 call. Darlie's voice is panicked, frantic. She tells the dispatcher an intruder broke in. Her children have been stabbed. Emergency services arrive within minutes.
There.
I walked over to Damon and bent down and examined the child. And that's when he gasped. It was the last time that he would breathe on his own.
What they find inside changes everything.
First thing I saw was blood on the floor in the entranceway to the house. And I could see Darlie Routier talking on the telephone.
My baby, they're dying, they're dead.
She was yelling, talking to the dispatcher, telling her that her kids were dying, that they had been stabbed.
She's saying this man went out, he came in and he killed the babies.
Devon is dead. Damon is critically injured. He will die before he reaches the hospital. Darlie herself has visible injuries. A slash to her throat, 2 millimeters from her carotid artery. 2 millimeters. And then her arms, covered in deep dark bruising, the kind that looks like a violent struggle. At first, investigators follow the intruder theory. A window screen in the garage has been cut. A bloody sock is found in an alleyway, 75 yards from the back of the house. But something is off, not explosive, just off. Right in the center of the living room, a glass-top coffee table. Fragile decorations sitting on its surface. An intruder attacked 2 young boys in this room, violently, and didn't touch a single thing on that table. Does that make sense to you? There's more. Investigators find fiberglass dust on a bread knife in the kitchen. The same type of fiberglass from the garage screen. Forensic experts concluded the screen was cut from the inside. They sprayed luminol in the kitchen. The sink lit up. Someone had recently washed a significant amount of blood down the drain and wiped the counters clean. Expensive jewelry sat in plain sight on the kitchen counters, untouched. A supposed robbery, and not one item was taken? Pause. Think about what that means. None of the evidence found at the crime scene thus far supports Routier's account. Let's get back into it. And then the blood on the back of Darlie's nightshirt. The blood spatter. Forensic experts said there was only one way it could get there. She had to be the one raising the knife. Those bruises on her arms, the prosecution said they weren't defensive. They said they were self-inflicted. Bruises she gave herself to tell a story.
It doesn't bother you that you have no eyewitness, no motive, no sense, and no confession.
She did everything to herself.
Something is very wrong. But the defense had questions the prosecution couldn't answer. On the coffee table, an unidentified bloody fingerprint. Not Darlie, not Darren, not any of the first responders. Whose print is that? Unidentified hairs were found on the bloody sock in the alleyway. Still unidentified today. And then there's Darren. Darlie's husband later admitted he had actually looked into hiring someone to stage a robbery for insurance money because they were so deep in debt. He says it never happened, but it makes you wonder who else might have had a key to that house. And the 911 tape. Supporters of Darlie have long argued the version played at the trial was edited, that the full recording shows something different. A mother in shock, desperately trying to save her sons.
I know I didn't sleep through that. I mean, how would anybody sleep through something like that? I think that I tried to fight with a man, and I think that he either knocked me unconscious, or I think that when, you know, he slit my throat or whatever, I think I passed out.
If the tape was edited, who allowed that? The trial began in January of '97. The prosecution built a portrait, a materialistic woman, a family drowning in debt, a mother overwhelmed by the weight of her life, and then the silly string video. The jury watched 15 seconds of Darlie at her son's graves, laughing, spraying silly string.
If you knew Devon and Damon, you would know that they're up in heaven, and they're up there having the biggest birthday party that we could ever imagine. And they wouldn't want us to be down here being sad, even though our hearts are breaking. I know that Devon and Damon would want us to be happy.
What they did not see, the 2-hour prayer service that came before it, the somber gatherings, the grief. 15 seconds out of 2 hours, that changes everything. But the defense's most powerful argument wasn't emotional, it was math. Damon could have only survived approximately 8 minutes after his injuries were inflicted. Darlie was on the phone with 911 for nearly 6 of those minutes. Think about that. 6 minutes on the phone to attack both boys, slash herself, stage the scene, plant a bloody sock 75 yards away in the alleyway? Because the deeper you look into this story, the more it stops feeling like a mystery and starts feeling like something much darker. In February '97, the jury returned a verdict, guilty, capital murder of her son, Damon. Darlie Routier was sentenced to death. She remains on death row today. She has never stopped maintaining her innocence.
I told him to hold on. I told him to be strong. And he said, "Okay, Mommy." He shook his head. That was the last words I ever heard him say.
Her legal team continues to fight for new DNA testing on the unidentified fingerprint, on the hairs found on that sock. Nearly 30 years on death row, and the questions still don't have answers. You've heard the 911 call, the timeline, the blood spatter, the unidentified prints, and you've heard about 15 seconds of silly string. I want to know what you think. Do you believe Darlie Routier killed her sons? Or has the state of Texas had the wrong person on death row for nearly 30 years? Even her ex-husband has came out publicly and said she's innocent.
Yeah, a lot of people think that because I divorced Darlie that I don't believe in her anymore, and that's far from the truth. Darlie is 100% innocent. She always has been, and she always will be. I didn't divorce Darlie because I felt that she was guilty.
Drop your verdict in the comments. Guilty or innocent? I read every single one. May Devon and Damon Routier continue to rest in peace. If you like this content, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Stay safe.